All right, so just a couple things. I'm not going to go more than like 15 minutes or so, hopefully. And you don't have to do this, but my hope is, and Steve said he was intrigued. So there's a positive. But the idea is if we build the interface together, and if you want, spend an hour and see if you can add the code and make it work. Because that's how you're learning in this anyway. It's not so much by the lectures or by me talking. It's by you. Even if you've got a project that somebody else has created, it's trying it. It's making mistakes that we all naturally make when we're keying stuff in anyway. All right? So I'm going to come up here, and just so you know, this thing right here, this tab view controller, if you look right here, you don't ever see this. You don't have to do anything with this. But this has got the two things on it for the first one and the second one. Okay? When you run this, automatically it's going to start right here with this first view. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this thing that says first view control, or first view loaded by first view controller, and second view. I'm going to remove both those because we don't need them. But before we do, I just want to leave them there so you can see that there's something there. All right. When you start to build this, you can basically, for lack of better words, you can build it any way you want to. To me, it makes the most sense to have some kind of a mental picture first of what you want this to look like. All right? Start doing that. Maybe paint your GUI, but don't get so hung up on the GUI. Bless you. A lot of the books I'm reading say, you know what, paint your GUI. Don't touch auto layout until you got your code working. Because people get so picky and they're constantly, oh, if I can do that, Command Z, and I'm going to try it again. No, that didn't work, Command Z again. And I find myself doing it at times. Don't be that concerned unless you're actually submitting it to the App Store. Of course you want it to be beautiful. But if you're doing it for yourself and you're doing it as a learning exercise, who cares if it's butt ugly? All right? So I'm going to start here with my first view right there with that one. Okay? And, well, what's going to be there? Let's see. First of all, again, I can double click on it. I just did, and I made it bigger again. Okay, so there it is. Like I said, I don't need this thing that says first view. I don't need this. And please look up on the screen here. And I'm trying to give you my own, I'll call it wisdom. You may not agree, but I'm trying at least, okay? The more I'm working with this stuff, sometimes this stuff is just hard to grab, especially if you've got something embedded within something else. I'm constantly going back to my document outline and grabbing it there. To me, that's much easier if I want to make sure I'm grabbing the right thing. I'll highlight it here. I don't even care what it says there. I'll highlight it over here anyway. So again, I want this thing that says first view, so if I take my mouse and I click there, I'm sure that's what I've got. If I want the loaded by first view controller, I'll click there and that's what I've got. All right? If you say, I don't want to do that, I just want to click right here, it looks like it's highlighted, I'm going to hit delete and it's gone. That looked like it worked. I'm going to click here, that looks like it, and okay, that's fine. It doesn't hurt anything. It's not that one way is better than the other. All right? But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to this first view controller and I'm going to find the nav bar. All right, so I type in nav, and one of the things that's there is a navigation bar. Okay? So I'm going to drag that up and I'm going to stick it up pretty close to the top of the screen here. I'll even cover, you know, my area in here with my status bar. I don't care. So there it is. Okay? So that's my navigation bar. And I put that in so I can double click on the word title and I can type in to-do list. Now I've got to start. Okay? It might not be great, but I've got to start. Okay? So I put in a nav bar and I changed the title to to-do list. All right? Then I'm going to come down here and I want to put a table view in here. All right? There's a table view controller. And guess what a table view controller does? It adds a brand new controller that's already got a table view in it. We don't want that yet. Our book does go into that. It's just there, you know, let's face it, there's only so much we can cover. And I know a lot of you probably feel like, yeah, you're covering way too much anyway. I'm just, you know, maybe I've told you this before, but one of my colleagues, Eric Knapp, who teaches this stuff over at Madison, great guy, unbelievably knowledgeable guy. They literally have, their beginning C class is about 9 weeks of C. Then he just goes into the idea of doing this, okay? Then what he does in the second class is he starts to go in, it used to be Objective-C, so my guess is he's converting over to Swift. Then in the third class, they're doing a lot of the stuff we're doing in here now. So see the difference? You understand why I keep asking them here if I can change the schedule around so I can do more of this stuff and get rid of like an access class and replace it with something like this? And they come back and they say, no, you can't do that. And I say, why? Well, because we have other instructors teaching that access class. And we do that so they can make a loan. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. That's the answers that I'm giving. All right. So I'm going to come up, grab my table view. I'm just going to drag it into here. Whoop, not the controller. I'm sorry, not the controller. I'm going to grab the table view right there, and I'm going to drag it in, let go. And I'm going to just manually set it up. So I'll manually basically, come on. And I'll have it take up, for lack of better words, just about everything that's not covered right now, everything that's not covered by the navigation bar. Whoops. Come on. All right. Now, if you do want to, you can go back in here now. I've got this stuff. You've got it on your stuff. I did go back and used auto layout. All right, everybody with me? I went back and used auto layout. So for example, I said with a to-do list. All right, so I went to the to-do list over here. And I went over to here, to my pin menu. And I said, let's see, on the to-do list, or on the, I'm sorry, in the navigation bar, I wanted to pin this top left and right. I guess I'll have to put a number or something in it, but you get the idea. We can do all that stuff. There's not enough time to do that right now. Okay, so I just want to go on and be more concerned with building the interface. All right, so that's the first one. That basically is the interface for the first one. That's all that's in it, a navigation bar and a table view. There's nothing else in it. Okay, so I'm going to go over then to the second view controller. And again, I want to highlight it over here in my document outline, hit delete, so that's gone. Highlight it in my document outline, hit delete, now that's gone. So we've already built this one. Would you all agree? This is what we just built. So what I want to do now is I want to add a label, and I want to add a text field, and I want to add a button. That's it. Now you can be as persnickety or as anal about this as you want to be. But just to make it simple, I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to add a label. And that label, I'm going to just kind of butt it up near the top here, and I'll drag it way the hay over. So I'll do that. Boom. That's fine. And that's right in there, and I'll center it. And that's, like I said before, that's going to be my add a task to the to-do list. All right? Okay, so that's the first thing. And here I said add to-do list item. It doesn't really matter. Okay? Then I'm going to come in and find a text field. And I'm going to drag that someplace underneath it. For some reason I lost it, so let me try it again. There. All right. And again, I'll widen that out. I'll use the blue lines here as guidelines. Okay, so there's that. All right. Now, what you might find, there's a couple different things, and one of them was in your book. We talked about it before. Sometimes, again, if you look up on the screen here, what people like to do is, even though typically you don't put a lot of text in here, all right, sometimes what people like to do is they like to type in something anyway in here. Task to add. All right? I'm asking you this. Why would I do that? Why would I put that in here? Why is that in there? Just so you can see it. There's other ways that you can do it also. There's placeholder text you can put in there. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't really care, but so I know there's something there. All right? Then underneath that, I'm going to put in my button. And we'll call this, you can call it add item, add task. It really doesn't matter. So now I've built my interface. I did not go back and use auto layout, correct? So it's probably going to look fine in portrait mode, but if I want this to work in landscape mode, it's going to look terrible right now. I don't care. I can always go back and do that later, okay? So let's think about what we want to do here. Well, for this one, hopefully everybody sees this right here, what's highlighted on the screen, where it says add, what is it, add a task to the to-do list. Does this make sense to everyone? That's static text. That's never going to change. It's a heading, for lack of better words. So there's absolutely, with something like this, there's absolutely no reason I can think of to ever add an outlet for it. Does that make sense? All right? It's just placeholder text, for lack of better. It's a heading. Placeholder text is the wrong word to use. It's a heading. All right? But if I come back to here, and I come back now and I add my assistant editor, and I'm going to turn a couple things off so I've got plenty of room here. There we go. All right. Well, this right here, that's my item that I'm going to add. So I do want to come and control drag over to here, and I do want to create an outlet for it. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to do that next, and then this, I'm going to control drag, and that's going to be an action. So this I just called item, and that I called, I believe it just what it says here, add item. And the reason I'm telling you that is if you want it to map up with what's in the code right now, because otherwise you're going to be changing it all over the place. Now, if you want to do that, because if you don't like the names I use, then fine, then change it to whatever you want. You're not turning it in anyway. But again, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to control drag over to here. Try it again. Control drag, and I'm going to call that item. All right, it's already, the rest of it's already set up for me. I'm going to connect. There that is. And I'm going to control drag from my button over to here. And this I want to be an action, not an outlet. All right, and this was add item, I believe. And instead of any object, I want to change that to UI button. All right. So now, in my first view controller, the first view controller, I now have, oh, and I got to do the to-do list. So this is the second one, I'm sorry. So in the second one that we have right here, all right, we have our IB outlet for our text field. We've got our IB action for our button. And the rest of the stuff that's in here, on this handout I gave you, it's the last page, front and back, that's just adding the code. All right? So let's switch back to the first view controller and take a look on here. All right, it's a good time to save. So I'm going to switch back again to my first view controller. And did you see what happened there? When I highlighted that one and I clicked up here, this automatically changed. All right, in the assistant editor, it changed back from one to the other. All right. Most of the time that seems to work. A couple times when I tried it, it didn't. All I did was, this was the one that we had up there, right here, this one. Notice how this says first view controller? I'm going to click in here. See how it changed to second view controller? All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to click, and it's back again. Okay? Now, a couple things, because I want to set this up so that all you're going to have to do is add the code if you have the time and the desire to do so. There's about 3 or 4 things we have to do, and we're done, and most of them are very quick. All right? So the first thing I want to do here is I've got a table view, so I'm going to control drag over to here, and I'm going to just call this, what do we call this? I don't remember. This is to-do list table. All right. Connect. So there's that. Okay, that's it for the variables, except I want to come up here and I want to add my global array. Var toDoList equals bracket string bracket paren. And you should notice after you do all that, that goes away. Okay. Now there's one more thing I want to show you, and I showed you this last week, but I want to show it to you again. And what I'm about to show you, there's two ways of doing what I'm about to show you. You hear what I said? I'm going to show you something, and there's two ways of doing it. So I want to show you both of them. All right? As of right now, this right here, this table view has no idea who's in charge of it. It really and truly doesn't by default. So we have to let it know, hey, table view, what's in charge of you is that view controller right there. All right? Because it's kind of a dumb animal, for lack of better words. So I've got my choice. I can take my mouse, click inside of here. All right? And again, I want to go back to my document outline, so I'm sure I'm clicking it. All right, so I want to come over here to my to-do list. So there it is. All right, so I can take my mouse and I can control drag up from here right to the view controller. And notice when I do that, what I get. It says, oh, you want to create some outlets. Do you want it to be a data source or do you want it to be a delegate? Yes. I want it to be both. And it does appear when you do it that way, you've got to do one, stop, and then control drag twice. Even with shift, it doesn't recognize you doing it twice. All right, which isn't a big thing, but I don't particularly like it. So the other way that we can do this is with this highlighted, I can come way over to the end here, and I can come up to my connections inspector right there. See that? Data source and delegate? Those are the same two things that you saw when I just dragged up. So now I can control drag from this dot to my view controller and let go, and then do it again. I like doing it that way because I think it's a little bit more visual. You may or may not agree. But I just showed you two ways of doing the same thing. So I'm going to take my mouse, put it over this, control drag, and let go. Now notice it's colored in. I'm going to take my mouse again, control drag. All right. So now they're both colored in. So now the system knows how I want to set that up. Okay? The other thing I didn't do on here is I didn't set up my prototype cell. So again, if I come back here to the attributes inspector with my table view set up or highlighted, I can go and change that from 0 to 1. Now that changed that. When I click in here, now I can come up to identifier and type in cell. What I just showed you is, I believe, all the setup that you need. All that you have left to do then is to put in the code. And if I did that too fast, I'll work with anybody or answer any questions. Go ahead.
On my first view controller, when I open the assistant editor, it says no assistant results, and there's no code.
All right, I'll take a look at it in just a second. Okay. Anything else? Now, so I did this a little bit differently. What I decided to do is run the finished product for you first, discuss the code, and then work with you to quickly build the interface so that you could add the code. Because what appears to happen in here otherwise is we run out of time all the time when we're about half to 3/4 of the way through. And I figured this way that wouldn't happen. So I'm giving you all the stuff that I'm creating here. Next week, you're going to have a core data. I'm going to give that to you. We're going to talk some about core data, and we're going to do the same kind of thing. And then again, in 2 more weeks from today, 2 weeks from today we don't meet. That's the teacher's in service. 3 weeks from today, we're going to build a simple game. All right? We're going to call it Steve because Steve likes games. No, we'll call it Bacon. Actually, that's what I should do. Is I should see if I can find some little little sprites of bacon. So like instead of shooting like at something, you shoot bacon at somebody to try to get them to do something. All right. All right. So that's all that I had. So I'm going to stop the run here, and then I'll walk over and help John and anybody else I can possibly at least try to help. I'll be glad to try.